Imagine this. You come home from the hospital with a pie, only to find strangers living in your house. Your children have vanished, selling the home to save you from debts that never existed. You follow the trail of scammers who tricked not only your family but hundreds of others. Warm July air still clung to my skin when I stepped off the interstate bus, a wicker pie carrier balanced on my hip and hope balanced somehow inside my chest. If you're tuning in from Detroit, Savannah, or way out in Sacramento, tell me down in the comments where you're listening tonight. I'm mighty curious how far this story will travel. Keep your ears open, because before the crust on that pecan pie even cooled, my whole notion of family cracked wide as the Mississippi at flood stage, and what poured through would change every door I chose to knock on afterward. I'd spent 7 weeks in St. Anthony's Medical Center, lungs wheezing from a pneumonia that came on mean and left a souvenir ache between my ribs. All that time, my daughter Lynette texted daily, "Rest, Mama, we're holding down the fort." My son Marcus sent silly emojis shaped like saxophones, our family's little code for everything's cool. So when I was cleared to leave, I aimed straight for the house on Willow Street, cradling the pie that had won first prize at the Bethel Baptist Bake Off 3 years running. Figured we'd celebrate my homecoming proper, laughter around the kitchen table, steam fogging the windows the way it always did when Marcus told one of his tall tales. Friends, have you ever felt the universe pause, just for a heartbeat, to warn you that the next breath might taste different from every breath that came before? Because the moment I rounded the corner onto Willow, something felt off. The lawn once trimmed neat by Lynette's electric mower now lay wild, grass bending like gossiping neighbors whispering over a fence. A U-Haul still idled at the curb, back ramp down, boxes stacked like hastily written excuses. My stomach fluttered, but I kept on, cane clicking against the sidewalk. Maybe they're redecorating, I told myself. Kids got ambitious, that's all. I climbed the porch steps, 2 new boards where Marcus had promised to fix the sagging tread, and pressed the bell. A chime echoed I'd never heard before, higher, tinkling. The door swung open on a face I didn't recognize, a young woman in paint-smeared overalls, eyebrows lifted in polite confusion. "Can I help you, ma'am?" I must have blinked twice before words formed. "I'm looking for Lynette and Marcus Braxton. This is their home," she bit her lip. "I'm sorry, but my partner and I closed on this house last week. The previous owners left no forwarding address, just said they had to relocate fast for work." She glanced at the pie carrier. "Are you maybe—" But I was already backing down the steps, heart thudding so loud I wondered if she could hear. Relocate fast? No forwarding address? My babies left and I didn't even know the destination. I shuffled toward the curb, pie heavy as lead. Tears threatened, yet something colder than sorrow settled deeper. A hollow realization that the life I'd nurtured like a Sunday rosebush had been transplanted without me. A horn beeped. The U-Haul driver leaned out the window, thumb pointing to an address label on one of the boxes. Riverbend, Ohio, a city 800 miles north. My legs buckled, and I gripped the mailbox to keep from falling. The driver hollered, "You need help, ma'am?" I shook my head, pride gluing my jaw shut. If you've ever stood on a sidewalk clutching proof that love can pack itself into cardboard and roll away, you'll know why I couldn't cry right then. Crying felt too tender, and tenderness had no armor. Instead, I inhaled the scent of pecans and bourbon sugar seeping through the basket weave, and I made a decision right there beneath the cicada drone. I would not be buried by abandonment. I would track down the truth, why my children fled, why they didn't tell me, and what secret storm drove them across state lines while their mother battled for breath in a sterile ward. And Lord willing, I'd tell this story so loud no other elder would ever wake from anesthesia to find the house key on her ring suddenly meaningless. So stick with me, friends. Because while I stood stranded on that porch, a neighbor's porch light flicked on across the street, Miss Delilah, retired school teacher with gossip sharper than pruning shears, and what she hollered through cupped hands reshaped my mission from reunion to outright rescue. She knew the rumor nobody else would say out loud, the one that curled around my heart like barbed wire and tightened with every syllable. But you'll hear Delilah's bombshell in the very next part, and trust me, once it detonates, you'll understand why one grandmother's quest can whip a whole town into a whirlwind. Drop your city below, keep that subscription bell ringing, and fetch yourself some sweet tea. The night is young, the road to Riverbend stretches long, and I've got a pie that's about to become evidence in the strangest investigation this side of Beale Street. Miss Delilah's voice sailed across the dusk like a siren. Odessa, you better come sit a spell, child. Got something you need to hear? Child. Funny the comfort in that word when a 72-year-old heart feels suddenly orphaned. I crossed the street, clutching the pie carrier like a life preserver, the neighborhood's porch lights blinking on one by one as if to guide me through grief's low tide. Delilah Harper had taught 3 generations their ABCs and 10 commandments of common sense. Now she rocked on her swing, gray bun tight as ever, sweet mint fan fluttering in one hand. Set that pie down, sugar, she said, scooting a cushion toward me. Lynette told me not to breathe a word, but Lord knows secrets rot faster than milk in July. I lowered myself beside her, felt the swing sigh beneath our combined memories. Delilah leaned in, voice a rasp. 2 weeks after you went into hospital, a man in a fancy sedan came knocking. Said he was an asset recovery consultant from Riverbend Finance Group. Offered your children debt consolidation if they signed a quick sale deed on this place and left town before legalities got sticky. She tapped my knee. Marcus looked torn clean in half, but Lynette, well, fear makes folks see mirages. She swore it was the only way to keep collectors from garnishing your medical bills. My mouth went dry. I'd kept my insurance current since Clarence died. There were no unpaid bills. They thought I was broke, I whispered. Delilah nodded. That slick-tongued fella waved papers stamped urgent and talked bankruptcy like it was a guillotine. Lynette packed the kids' keepsakes overnight. Heat pricked behind my eyes. Anger, sorrow, something nameless. Why didn't they call me? Sweetheart, scammers spin webs round logic. That man convinced them you'd be safer nowhere near the mess. He even tossed in a rental house up north, said first 6 months free. Town folks saw the U-Haul at dawn. By afternoon, they were gone. Delilah's gaze softened. I phoned the hospital, but you were under heavy sedation. Doctor said no disturbances. A whip-poor will cried from the magnolia. My children, fleeing ghosts of debt that never existed, had fallen for a con as old as snake oil and left me standing in its wake, beneath the grief-stirred resolve. Do you have his card? I asked. Delilah reached into her apron, produced a glossy rectangle. L. Whitmore, Senior Recovery Specialist. A phone number with an Ohio area code gleamed beneath. I slipped the card into my purse. Thank you. I'm going to find that man and I'm going to find my babies. Riverbend's a long haul. You'll need wheels, and I seen that leaky radiator on your Buick. I'll pawn the Buick. Take the Greyhound. Delilah shook her head. Hush that nonsense. Thomas Perry still owes me for the time I knitted blankets for his twins. He's got a pickup that'll make the trip. She patted my hand. And I've got cousins in Cincinnati, halfway to Riverbend, who'll put you up. Community, my unexpected lanterns, flickered to life around us. News traveled fast. By 9 o'clock, Mr. Perry himself was tightening lug nuts on his old Ford, while Gladys Monroe brewed travel thermos coffee in my honor. Even little Jasper Lee from 1B slipped me a map he'd printed at the library. Highlighted routes, emergency gas stations circled in red. Their kindness stitched armor over the wound in my chest. Inside Delilah's kitchen, I called Riverbend Finance. A recording chirped. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. Typical. But righteous fire loves an obstacle. I jotted the disconnected line into my notebook titled Truth Quest. First clue on a paper trail I vowed to follow. By moonrise, I'd reclaimed one suitcase from the bus station locker, stuffed it with essentials, Bible, cedar cane, change of dresses, and yes, the pecan pie. Sorrow might travel light, but comfort rides shotgunned. At dawn, the pickup growled to life, Jasper snapping a Polaroid of Delilah and me waving beside the mailbox. I stowed the photo in my journal, fixed my hat brim, and climbed in. Mr. Perry adjusted the mirror. Memphis in the rear view, Miss Odessa. Next stop, Cincinnati. The tires rolled over the spot where Marcus once chalked hopscotch squares and the world lurched forward. Hours stretched like taffy. Somewhere outside Nashville, the radiator hissed. Thomas poured water, muttering that perseverance beats horsepower. I watched mile markers pass, each one whispering my children's names. Lynette loved roadside diners. Marcus collected state line postcards. Every memory fanned determination. We reached Cincinnati near midnight, dashed by rain. Delilah's cousin Lorraine ushered us into a bungalow smelling of lavender and old hymns. She fed us gumbo, listened to my tale, and fetched an ancient Rolodex. Whitmore, Whitaker, Whittier. She paused. Whitmore Finance had a branch here, shut down last year after fraud allegations. The manager transferred to Riverbend. Names, dates, evidence. My notebook filled like a prosecutor's ledger. Before bed, I knelt on the guest room rug, palms pressed to the quilt. Lord, guide my feet, I prayed, and guard my children's hearts till I arrive. Outside, storm clouds bruised the moon. Lightning stitched silver veins across the sky, an omen or a map depending on how a soul chooses to see. I chose map. Sleep crept slow, but when it came, I dreamed of porch lights flicking on across an infinite street, each bulb a stranger ready to help. One by one, they lit a path all the way to Riverbend. Stay close, friends, because next a retired trucker with a CB radio will crack Whitmore's trail wide open, and the first door I knock on in Riverbend won't be my children's. It'll be the office of a sheriff who's been hunting the same predator for years. Keep that subscription bell ringing. This highway's about to hit a hairpin curve you won't see coming. Morning cracked open over Cincinnati with a bruised peach sky, and the scent of Lorraine's chicory coffee coaxed me from the guest room quilt. Before the alarm crowed 6. Thomas already had the pickup's hood propped, mumbling to the radiator like a father bribing a feverish child to behave. Lorraine pressed a map into my hand. Back roads inked in purple, truck stops circled where her church's quilting bee sisters might still recognize her handwriting and loan a weary traveler a quart of coolant or a sliver of gossip. Whitmore's people move freight at night, she warned, tapping a fingernail against a town called Sandstone Ridge halfway to Riverbend. Lot of unmarked vans offload at the old grain elevator. My neighbor's cousin drives 18-wheelers, retired now, but his CB still hums with whispers. Name's Earl Possum Givens. He owes me for 10 years of free gumbo ladles. She winked, the sort of wink that seals covenants. Rain spit on the windshield as we threaded north on Highway 71, but Thomas kept the wipers steady, and I kept my eyes on mile markers as though each number were a bead on a rosary. Somewhere past Lebanon, we pulled into a sun-bleached diner shaped like a jukebox. Its parking lot glistened with puddles deep enough to mirror the sky. Inside, chrome stools lined the counter like old soldiers. Earl Givens sat on the far end, weathered ball cap tugged low, CB handset clipped to his belt buckle even off the road. His forearms, roads mapped in liver spots, cradled a mug of black coffee. He looked up as we approached, squinting behind bifocals. "You must be Lorraine's Memphis friend," he drawled, voice gravel shaken in a tin can. "Possum don't forget a favor call." He jerked his chin toward a booth. "Sit. Tell me about that vulture Whitmore." I slid into red vinyl. Pie carrier beside me. Thomas ordered eggs over easy, but scarcely touched them. I laid out Delilah's gossip, the hurried sale, the debt lie, the children vanished. Earl listened, eyes narrowing to fence post slits. When I finished, he reached into a denim pocket and produced a folded paper, hand-drawn route, dotted with CB channel numbers. Heard Whitmore's rigs chatter on Channel 23, handle lone lender. They run south from Riverbend every Tuesday, stop at Sandstone Ridge Elevator to swap boxes. No bill of lading, no manifests. Sheriff Clegg out there's been sniffin' but can't pin 'em. Earl jabbed the map. Clegg's sister bakes cherry pies that could raise Lazarus. Bring him that pecan beauty, you'll buy 5 minutes audience, maybe a deputy escort straight to Whitmore's front door. I glanced at the pie. Crust still golden beneath wax paper, bourbon glaze catching the diner's fluorescent glare like stained glass. A peace offering turned Trojan horse. The Lord surely has a sense of humor. By noon, rain surrendered to a muggy haze. We waved Earl goodbye. He promised to monitor the airwaves and holler if lone lender rolled early, and steered toward Sandstone Ridge. Fields of knee-high corn flanked the 2-lane green blades shushing secrets to the wind. As we crested a hill, the derelict grain elevator rose on the horizon, rust scaling its silos like moss on gravestones. Thomas parked behind a stand of cottonwoods. We watched from the cab, engine ticking. 2 white box trucks idled near the loading dock. Men in neon vests passed crates stamped with the strange logo, intertwined a W made of snake tails biting their own ends. My pulse thumped. Whitmore's Ouroboros, greed feasting on itself. Suddenly the CB clip to Thomas's dash crackled. Breaker 2-3, lone lender to Ravenclaw, package ready, 20 mics to roll. Earl's voice followed, faint but urgent. "Possum to Lantern Lady, your wolves are moving. Get to the sheriff 5 by 5. Thomas threw the truck into gear. Gravel spat from tires as we barreled into town, population sign so faded the digits were guesswork. The sheriff's office squatted beside a feed and seed store, single squad car out front, paint peeling. Sheriff Nora Clegg emerged, broad-shouldered, gray streak bold in her braid. She eyed the pie first, then my face. "Ma'am, if that's bourbon pecan, you've got my attention." I thrust the carrier forward, words tumbling. Whitmore, forged deeds, children gone, trucks rolling now. Her jaw clenched. "Been dying to nail Whitmore, but jurisdiction tangles me up like fishing line. You'll swear complaint." "Under penalty of perjury," I said, lifting Clarence's cedar cane like an oath stick. Clegg barked orders to her deputy, radioed county patrol to intercept lone lender on Route 8. Then she turned that steel gaze on me. You're riding with me, Miss Braxton. Family's stakes, family's front seat. Sirens wailed as we accelerated, pie forgotten on the station counter. Blue lights bled across wheat fields, and my heart pounded to the rhythm of each flash. Ahead, dust plumes signaled the convoy's approach. Clegg picked up the mic. Unit 12 in pursuit of white international box, possible fraud cargo. Friends, if you're still with me, grip your seat backs, because when those trucks jackknifed at the crossroads and crates burst open like rotten secrets, I learned Whitmore's scheme went far beyond my single house sale. Inside the splintered wood, I glimpsed passports, wills, stacks of forged medical bills, lives erased for profit, and one envelope bore my own name stamped "Final Transfer Pending." But the sheriff's shouting, the driver's attempt to flee, and a discovery darker than ink, that's for the next part. Keep that bell chiming. The road to Riverbend just turned from thunderstorm to tornado, and I'm chasing the funnel straight into its hollow eye. Sheriff Clegg's cruiser fishtailed to a stop behind the disabled box truck, just as the second rig lurched toward the shoulder, its rear doors flapping like wounded wings. Diesel fumes tangled with the burnt rubber stench of locked brakes. I stumbled from the passenger seat, clutching Clarence's cedar cane, heart thundering in my ears. Deputy Morales sprinted past, weapon drawn, while Clegg's calm, commanding voice boomed through her bullhorn. "Drivers, hands where I can see them. This is Sandstone Ridge Sheriff's Office. Do not move." The first driver, a stringy man in a lone lender ball cap, raised trembling palms. The second bolted, leaping over a ditch toward the cornfield. Without thinking, I planted my cane, stepped into his path, and jabbed its brass tip at his shin. Surprise toppled him face first into mud. For a beat I stood over him, every betrayal my children had swallowed crackling through my bones. "You're not running from this, son," I growled. Morales cuffed him, eyes flicking to me in startled respect. Crates lay shattered on the asphalt, guts spilled under the relentless Ohio sun. Paper fluttered everywhere, photocopies of deeds, stacks of blank death certificates, medical bills doctored to squeeze pensions dry. Morales knelt beside a lockbox that had burst open. Inside, bundles of passports and driver's licenses, each featuring an elderly face and a forged signature transferring power of attorney. Sheriff Clegg whistled low. Looks like Whitmore's people were scripting whole new lives and deaths for folks who never saw it coming. She lifted a folder marked "Final Transfer Pending" and slid out the top document. My name stared back in block letters above an unsigned cremation authorization. My knees buckled. Thomas appeared just in time to steady me. "Lantern lady," came Earl's crackling voice through the cruiser's CB. Clegg had patched him in. "Just heard lone lender crying for backup on 23. Says Mother Bird is angry you clipped her wings. That code for Whitmore?" Clegg's jaw tightened. "Sure is. Means boss man's on his way." Within minutes, an obsidian Mercedes sedan glided up the road, engine purring like a well-fed panther. A tall figure emerged, silver hair, ivory suit, smile sharpened to a scalpel. Leonard Whitmore himself. He surveyed the chaos with practiced disdain, then focused on me, as if trying to recall which ledger column I belonged in. Asset or liability. "Sheriff," he said, voice velvety, "I believe you've made a grave mistake detaining my contractors. They transport confidential medical records under federal authorization." Clegg folded her arms. "Save it for the judge. We've got enough forged IDs here to staff a ghost town." Whitmore's gaze slid to the folder in her hand, then to me. Mrs. Braxton, I'm sorry your children misunderstood our services. They sought relief from crushing medical debt. My firm merely facilitated a property for care exchange." Anger gave my lungs fresh air. You lied about bills that never existed, stole their home, and left me for dead. That's not care. It's carnage. His smile never flickered, but his eyes hardened. Intent is difficult to prove, ma'am. He pivoted toward the deputy holding the evidence lockbox, and that's when Jasper's Polaroid slid from my journal, catching a stray breeze. The photo, Delilah, me, and the pie waving beside the old mailbox landed at Whitmore's feet. He bent, curious, and on the back of that snapshot Jasper had printed his neat block letters, "Justice loves daylight." Whitmore straightened, face finally cracking. Clegg stepped in. "Mr. Whitmore, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, elder exploitation, and interstate racketeering." Handcuffs clicked louder than any gavel. Thomas exhaled. Morales radioed dispatch, and the cornfield echoed with the distant whir of arriving state troopers. As they loaded Whitmore into the cruiser, he glanced over his shoulder. "Your children signed willingly, Mrs. Braxton. Some contracts don't break clean." I gripped the folder bearing my almost cremation. "Maybe, but faith in a good lawyer can scrub the stains." Clegg handed me the final transfer packet, now sealed as evidence but still trembling in my grasp. "We'll get your house sale voided," she promised. "But first, you need to find Marcus and Lynette. Tell them the nightmare's over, if they're ready to wake up." Her words hovered like prayer over fresh graves. I watched troopers load crates into evidence vans, each box a stolen life being hauled back toward daylight. Whitmore's Mercedes sat abandoned by the roadside, its glossy paint now spattered with mud and piece-paper confetti. Earl's voice crackled through the CB one last time. "Possum to Lantern Lady, heard the cat's in the cage. Need a ride to Riverbend?" I met Clegg's eyes. She nodded toward her cruiser's back seat, empty now except for handcuffs and a half-eaten bourbon pecan slice Morales had rescued from the station. "Hop in," she said. "Let's go bring those babies home." Friends, keep your notifications on and your lanterns trimmed, because starts at a sleepy cul-de-sac in Riverbend where a for rent sign now hangs, my children's porch light flickers, and an eviction notice flutters in the wind. Will they forgive themselves when the truth knocks? Or will Whitmore's lies have built walls I can't climb? Stick around, because a mother's knock can sound like thunder, and thunder always demands an answer. Riverbend, Ohio, did not greet us with a skyline so much as with a sigh. Low brick storefronts slumped beside a meandering creek, porch flags hanging limp in late summer humidity. Sheriff Clegg eased her cruiser off the county road and into Willowbrook Estates, a subdivision of beige ranchers whose cookie-cutter cheer looked washed pale by secrets. My chest tightened. Marcus's last text photo, kids on bicycles beneath a sycamore, had that same cul-de-sac curve, that same patched asphalt scar shaped like a crooked Y. We rolled past an ice cream truck parked for winter storage, its cartoon penguin grin peeling. At number 26, the mailbox still read Braxton in Lynette's loopy handwriting, but a red sticker slapped across the name shouted, "Final notice, tenant in default." My pulse thudded so loud I nearly missed the smaller flyer pinned beneath. "Community BBQ today, all welcome." Someone had scrawled canceled in black marker. Clegg killed the engine. "Eviction posted 3 days ago," she murmured after a quick check on her tablet. "Landlord, Riverbend Finance Residential Division, one of Whitmore's shells." She met my gaze. "Ready?" I nodded, though my knees felt like water in a paper cup. The front yard sported 2 suitcases, lids gaping like abandoned mouths. A plastic dinosaur poked from one. I pressed the doorbell. Instead of a chime, a recording crackled. "This residence is under property transfer. For inquiries, call." I jabbed the bell again, silencing it. A curtain stirred. Moments later, the door inched open to reveal Marcus, hair unkempt, eyes rimmed red. He froze as if I were a messenger he'd prayed never to meet. Mama. The word sounded half hope, half fear. Behind him, Lynette appeared, clutching a sleeping toddler. Cardboard boxes towered around them like barricades, stamped RFG and Whitmore's snake-tail W. A single floor lamp illuminated the chaos. The electricity had clearly been cut. I stepped forward, cane steady. Children, the storm you feared is gone. Whitmore's in custody. Your deed, your debts, lies. I held out Sheriff Clegg's notarized order voiding the sale. You're free. Lynette's shoulders sagged, relief and shame colliding. We thought collectors would garnish your treatment bills, and the agent said you'd die waiting for coverage. Tears slid, splashing the toddler's curls. Marcus rubbed his temples. I sold everything, Ma, even Dad's record collection. I took his hand. We can rebuy vinyl, we can't rebuy truth, but we just reclaimed it. Clegg cleared her throat. We need you both at the county courthouse tomorrow for sworn statements. The prosecution's case hinges on victims. Marcus flinched. Lynette tightened her grip on the child. I gentled my tone. One more valley to cross, babies, then sunrise. A knock at the half-open door interrupted us. A wiry woman in postal blues held a certified envelope. Braxton? She eyed Clegg's badge. This just came. Looks urgent. Clegg signed. Inside lay a typed letter on Whitmore letterhead dated the morning of his arrest. Transfer incomplete. Immediate remittance required. Failure will result in asset seizure by agents in the field. The last line chilled my spine. Carrier en route. ETA 1730. Clegg checked her watch. 1730 was 10 minutes away. Sirens wailed in the distance, not police, but ambulance pitch. Clegg's eyes narrowed. He's sending recovery goons to grab whatever's left before the warrant triggers. She radioed dispatch for backup, then scanned the cul-de-sac. A white Sprinter van turned the corner, no plates, back windows blacked. My grip tightened on the cane. Marcus whispered, "What do we do?" I took a breath that tasted of pecans and courthouse marble. We stand where light can find us. With Clegg's nod, we ushered the children into the foyer and flipped every lamp that still had a bulb. The van screeched to a halt. 2 men hopped out, dressed in generic security gray. One barked, "Riverbend Finance repossession, step aside." Clegg leveled her service weapon. Badge beats clipboard, hands where I can see them. They froze, but one reached into his jacket. My cane shot out, striking his wrist. A stun gun clattered to the porch. Backup cruisers howled into the street moments later, red and blue halos strobing chalk drawings on the pavement. As deputies cuffed the trespassers, Marcus sagged against the doorframe, tears finally spilling. Lynette pressed her forehead to mine. "We thought we saved you. We nearly buried you." I kissed her damp cheek. Fear disguises itself as love, child. Today we unmask it. Deputies hauled the goons away and dusk settled soft. Clegg tucked her citation pad. "House is safe for now. We'll post protection detail till court." She met my eye with a half smile. "You swung that cane like Babe Ruth, Odessa." I exhaled, exhaustion crashing over me like tide on shoals. Yet in the porch light's glow, I saw something new in my children's faces. Not the brittle desperation I'd feared, but the tender sprout of resolve. Still, one envelope in Whitmore's cash had remained unopened, marked only for executor. Its destination, an address in Chicago, next week's date. What final move had the snake planned? Night in Willowbrook Estates slept uneasily. Patrol cars crawled the cul-de-sac every hour, tires whispering over asphalt while their rooftop beacons painted rotating constellations on the blinds. Still, I lay awake in Lynette's guest room. Empty bookcases against beige walls, a single nightlight glowing like a timid star, reading every line of Whitmore's sealed executor-only packet, Chicago address, signatures already forged in Marcus's name, and an inventory list that made my heart stumble. Safety deposit keys, original birth certificates, cremation prepay vouchers. He hadn't just planned to steal property. He meant to erase genealogies, reset identities like chalkboards wiped clean. Dawn tiptoed pink across the windowsill when Marcus knocked. Ma can't sleep. He lowered himself onto the edge of the bed, cheeks hollow. What if the court says we were accomplices? We signed everything. I brushed his knuckles, felt the same scar he'd earned at 12 climbing the church fence. Ignorance isn't innocence, I said softly, but repentance outruns both if you keep sprinting. Tomorrow you tell the judge exactly how Whitmore spun fear into chains. The truth will bruise, but it won't kill. Down the hall, Lynette hummed lullabies to calm the toddler, new resolve underlining each note. Sheriff Clegg's deputy slept in a living room recliner, sidearm holstered yet ready. His soft snores ticked off time until custody transports would arrive for the courthouse run. I folded the Chicago packet, tucked it into the inner pocket of my Sunday dress, then pressed my palm to the Bible atop the nightstand. Guide my tongue, I whispered, and guard my children from the weight of their own regret. By 8:30, the Braxton family, plus Clegg, Deputy Morales, and Thomas, filed into Jefferson County Court, a 60s concrete block topped with oxidized copper letters spelling justice for all, though some letters had fallen, leaving just faux all. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed like impatient hornets. Federal prosecutor Amelia Cho greeted us with a brief nod. Slim, sharp, coffee in one hand, she wasted no breath. Whitmore's arraignment enters evidence at 10. Your testimony, she pointed to Marcus and Lynette, tears his plea deal apart. Then her gaze speared me. You have something else? I slid the Chicago envelope across. Cho scanned it, eyebrows climbing. He planned an identity laundering pipeline to Cook County. God help us. She tapped the desk. We'll need this unsealed. Judge Herron hates surprises. Doesn't mean we won't give him one. We ride to Chicago after this? Thomas asked. Cho smirked. If Whitmore's network didn't fold overnight, his lieutenants will try to torch records. I'm dispatching federal marshals now. She pivoted to me. Odessa, you willing to testify there too? 7 weeks ago, pneumonia had rattled my lungs. Now adrenaline filled them with new air. I'll go wherever the darkness tries next, I said, cane steady on the tiles. Court convened at 9:40. Whitmore shuffled in wearing orange and chain, arrogance wilted yet not dead. When Judge Herron called Marcus first, my boy's voice quivered. But truths marched out one after another, forged medical invoices, coercive midnight calls, quick sale deception. Lynette followed, clutching photos of unpaid utility shut-off void slips, proof the alleged crushing bills were fantasies. The gallery, packed with local seniors holding handmade stop elder fraud signs, murmured like distant thunder after each lie exposed. Then it was my turn. I stepped to the stand, cedar cane echoing, heart strangely calm. I described waking to machines hissing in the hospital, trusting texts of reassurance, bussing home with a pie only to meet strangers in my doorway. I told of extension cords, sheriff's cuffs, and the moment a mother outran fear with fury for her children's souls. When Prosecutor Cho displayed Whitmore's cremation voucher bearing my forged signature, a tremor rippled across the room like wind through wheat. Judge Herron adjusted his spectacles. Mr. Whitmore, the evidence now includes not only fraudulent property transfers, but prearranged end-of-life documentation. Do you dispute these exhibits? Whitmore's lawyer whispered, but the snake lifted his chin. All services were voluntary contracts. Heron's gavel cracked. Bond revoked. Defendant remanded pending Chicago investigation. Gasps burst. Relief followed like exhale after held breath. Deputies led Whitmore out. He glanced back once, gaze catching mine, still calculating, but I met him with a steadiness forged in porch-light vigils and highway prayers. Outside, reporters surged. I gave them a single line. When fear knocks, let courage answer holding community's hand. Lynette tucked herself beneath my arm, Marcus on my other side, forming a human bridge over months of silence. Sirens wailed, not in pursuit, but as escort. Marshall's Suburbans idled, ready to ferry evidence north. Cho approached, Chicago file under her arm. We leave in 2 hours. Protective custody motel halfway. You okay riding? I've chased this shadow since Memphis, I said, stepping toward Tomase's faithful pickup, radiator now gleaming after the sheriff's mechanic's mercy. One more state line won't stop me. Marcus exhaled. Ma, after Chicago, can we go home? I squeezed his fingers. Home is where folks refuse to abandon each other. We carry it in us now. As we climbed into the convoy, clouds stacked like cathedrals over the horizon. I pictured Chicago's skyscrapers, lanterns of glass, and somewhere within, file cabinets jittery with stolen histories waiting to be freed. Whatever awaited, courtrooms, warehouses, ashes in urns mislabeled for profit, we would meet it together. Wind off Lake Michigan slapped the federal motorcade as we rolled into Chicago just after dawn, the sky the color of cold steel and yesterday's coffee. Marshals flanked us front and rear, black Suburbans with antennas bristling like porcupines, while Thomas's weary pickup chugged in the middle, a rust-flecked ark ferrying one stubborn grandmother, 2 repentant children, and a box of evidence thick enough to choke a shredder. Somewhere in these streets, Whitmore's last safe deposit vault waited, a mausoleum of forged lives we had come to exhume. Prosecutor Amelia Cho rode up front, phone glued to her ear. Yes, Judge Morales signed the emergency warrant, she barked. Yes, we have the code, 0319C. She glanced back at me and nodded. Marcus's birthday. The same digits Whitmore used on every lock. Even a serpent loves patterns. We reached the loop before traffic girded in full force. The vault's address turned out to be a somber limestone building wedged between a juice bar and a boutique gym. Irony stacked like weights behind glass. Hipsters sprinting nowhere while elders bled pensions outside. Marshals cleared the sidewalk. Cho read the warrant. A locksmith in an FBI windbreaker knelt to the brass door and had it singing open in under a minute. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed over rows of safe deposit drawers. Dust filmed the counters. No customer had signed the ledger in months. Whitmore counted on secrecy, not foot traffic. Marshal Ruiz passed me nitrile gloves. Ma'am, you'll want to see this. Drawer after drawer slid free, and with each metallic rasp, another stranger's identity tumbled into evidence tubs. Birth certificates with watermarks bleached white, powers of attorney pre-signed by shaking hands that probably never held a pen. Then came the earn tags, dozens of brass plates etched with names, including 2 still blank. My knees wobbled. Marcus steadied me. He really planned to burn everything that proved we lived, I whispered. Lynette clutched her daughter tight, tears hot on my shoulder. At the bottom of the largest drawer lay a single leather folder stamped Bra Exton, executed contract. Cho sliced it open. Inside, a cashier's check for $200,000 payable to Riverbend Finance, dated 3 days after my hospital admission, and a final transfer deed, my Memphis house to Whitmore Holdings, already notarized with my forged signature. My chest burned. I remembered Calvin's voice in the flash drive confession. I kept copies on those who funded my mess. This was the payoff. Whitmore bought my home with my own future. Cho's eyes narrowed. This amount ties to a shell in the Caymans. We can freeze it. She turned to Ruiz. Broadcast a seizure order, code gray. Ruiz spoke into his radio. Across town, bank accounts shivered. But Whitmore had left us one more snare. On the folder's back flap, a sticky note read, "If vault accessed, release contingency." Beneath it, a USB drive hung on red thread like a clot of warning. Cho frowned. Could be malware, could be proof. Marcus swallowed. Or both. We relocated to a Faraday tent hastily erected on a conference table. A cyber tech named Valdez slipped the drive into an air-gapped laptop. Lines of code flickered, then a simple video window opened. Whitmore stared back. Pre-recorded 2 weeks earlier, suit immaculate. "Congratulations, Inquisitors," his velvet voice began. "By now you've dismantled my Midwest network. But while you chased paper, I invested in something less tangible. Influence." The screen cut to silent footage. 3 men in congressmen's lapel pins exiting a private jet, shaking Whitmore's hand. He continued, "Indict me, and I unveil every donor ledger tied to your re-election coffers. Bury this vault, I walk free, expose it, I bring friends down with me, choose wisely." The video ended. Silence settled, heavier than the vault door. Cho exhaled through her teeth. He's banking on fear again. I straightened my spine, cane tip clicking on tile. Fear is just a shadow, Ms. Cho. Shine brighter. She studied me. 62 years of kitchen table sermons, nursing home nights, and one long highway ride, forging into something immovable. Finally, she nodded. We release everything. Let the chips fall like hail. Valdez began duplicating drives. Ruiz photographed every ledger page. Marcus and Lynette signed affidavits right there on the marble counter, ink gliding smoother than any lie. Outside, news vans already perched at the curb. Earl Possum Givens had worked his CB magic, leaking word of the raid faster than press releases could cue. Cameras rolled as we stepped into the sun, crates of reclaimed histories wheeled behind on hand trucks. Reporters shouted questions, but I raised a palm. "Today isn't about me," I said. "It's about every elder who felt their porch light flicker and thought night had finally won. Night didn't. We're still here." Marcus and Lynette flanked me, shoulders squared, redemption dawning in their eyes. Sirens whooped down LaSalle as federal agents escorted Whitmore's attorneys for questioning. Fear's influence, unraveling stitch by stitch. Yet the war wasn't won. Congressional names in that footage would twist tomorrow's headlines, maybe tilt sympathy away. I glanced at Cho. She met my gaze. Steely, determined. We would weather the spin together. Friends, dust off your lanterns, because in the final we return to Memphis, where a boarded-up house on Willow Street waits to breathe again, and a community potluck will test whether forgiveness can rise like bread or fall flat as a burnt crust. Stay tuned, the last chord's about to ring, and you'll want to feel every vibration. 3 weeks later, Memphis summer thundered back into my lungs like a gospel choir hitting its final refrain. Willow Street smelled of cut grass and honeysuckle again, not U-Haul exhaust. Thomas's pickup bumped to a stop in front of my house. Once emptied, now rescued from the registrar's limbo by Judge Heron's injunction and 2 notarized apologies from Riverbend Finance. Boards had come off the windows yesterday. A fresh coat of buttercream paint winked in the morning sun, courtesy of neighbors who believed forgiveness looked best in bright colors. Lynette stood on the porch, toddler on her hip, holding a bundle of balloons that spelled SORR in silver mylar. Marcus finished replacing the sagging step he'd promised to fix a year ago. When he saw me, he straightened, hammer dangling from his belt like a peace offering. Inside, the living room glowed with mismatched lamplight. My original fixtures, dug from Whitmore's vault and shipped home by federal marshals. The cedar chest sat open beneath the window, quilt spilling out like a sunrise. Jasper's Polaroid, now framed, hung above the mantel. Beneath it, a delicate wooden sign Gladys had burned with a soldering iron. Justice loves daylight. Neighborhood potlucks at 3, Delilah announced, bustling in with a casserole that smelled of sweet potato and cinnamon. But we figured you'd want a private moment first. She ushered everyone onto the porch, closing the door with a click, soft as a hymn's final note. My children turned to me, uncertainty and hope sharing the same face. Marcus broke first, voice ragged. Mama, there's no ledger big enough to balance what we did. No deed stronger than what you showed us in Chicago. You still want us here? I laid the cane aside and opened my arms. This house was always yours. Walls forgive quicker than hearts, but hearts follow when love knocks long enough. Lynette pressed her cheek against mine, tears warm, her daughter wedged like a living apology between us. A rumble outside signaled the arrival of half the city block, Mr. Perry carrying folding chairs, Alea with a tureen of gumbo, Earl Possum Givens in his trucker cap, broadcasting the potluck over CB Channel 23. Break, break, lanterns lighting on Willow. We set tables end to end across the yard. Dishes appeared like blessings. Cornbread, collards, a peach cobbler that steamed when the foil came off. Sheriff Clegg video called from Chicago, trial date set, Whitmore's influence crumbling faster than July ice. Calvin even dialed from the prison chapel, voice steadier, promising to walk his repentance one sober day at a time. Before we ate, Pastor Holmes lifted a glass of sweet tea. Tonight we taste community, he said, and let its sugar coat every bruise but never hide the scar. Scars teach. Laughter and amen rippled through the gathering. I caught Marcus's eye. He raised a slice of bourbon pecan pie, the same recipe that began this road, and we clinked crusts like crystal. As cicadas tuned up for their twilight performance, lamplight from every porch spilled onto the street, each bulb a silent vow, never again. Children chased fireflies, Delilah's fan creaked a gentle rhythm, and for the first time in months the air tasted only of forgiveness and charcoal smoke. When moonrise silvered the rooftops, I stepped onto the makeshift stage, 2 milk crates and Jasper's lantern, and faced friends, kin, and curious strangers already recording on their phones. Thank y'all for carrying me when my own legs shook, I said. If you're ever tempted to dim someone else's lamp out of fear, remember this night, how fast a neighbor's match can relight the world. Applause fluttered like moth wings against the lantern glass. I turned to the camera lens. Maybe it was yours if you're watching now. Friends from Memphis to Melbourne, I said. Share this story so nobody believes the lie that aging equals helpless. And if darkness knocks on your door, grab your lantern, grab your people, and answer with light. The feed ended on laughter, but the hum of community lingered, the kind of music no scammer could ever silence.